But right now, I'm joined by Elena Kembalazi, the program manager at the Initiative for Socio and Economic Rights, to talk about a story that made headlines this week. The Constitutional Court striking down their petition in which they sought to actually handle a few matters in there. And she's going to be explaining to us. All right. The Italian investor Finassi Rocco Construction, tell us, how did this whole mess start?
So first of all, we have to remember where Lubowa started. It started a decade ago in 2014 when government had this great idea to finance, equip, construct a specialized hospital, both at Entebbe and then also at the Cancer Institute. Indeed. It was initially going to be government, you know, really investing in our health facilities. Indeed. Then they changed their mind. They had a brilliant idea to do this, to merge the two at Lubowa, and got this investor. They've been having conversations in 2015. They formed, Finassi and Rocco formed a company specifically for this deal called a special purpose vehicle. They got into, government got into the first agreement in 2015, Project Works Investment Agreement. This is the one that is going to talk about the building, the phase we're in right up to now. Right? And then 2017, we see them, they begin to hold the site, the president launches it. 2018, they come, and there's another agreement also done, the project service agreement, because Lubowa is not just building, it's also operating, maintaining a hospital for a total period of 8 years for all of this. And then in 2018, December, they get into the direct agreement. That's where they really now be in agreement. The financing, government says, we shall issue promissory notes to Finassi Rocco. They will be able to endorse them to these banks. We will make sure we are going to guarantee this loan. We're going to guarantee that money will be paid for this hospital. Indeed. Now, after that, around March, that's when the AG, I think, comes in now. And they say, they ask for a legal opinion. This is also taken to Parliament, February there. Parliament passes this in March. Now, our case had said that under the Constitution, there is some guidance on how some of these things should be done under Article 159. All right. You know, the person that has the authority to bind us on things like loans, it's actually Parliament. You're supposed to come and lay these things before Parliament. There should be a resolution passed saying that, you know, you can go ahead. Then you even bring the contracts, then another one passed. Then
what exactly were we hearing when Irene Mulia-Gonje came out saying Article 159 was never contravened?
Yes, so the justice decided that it was not contravened, and I think it's a very troubling precedent. She refers to the Public Finance Management Act, and it's interesting because Lubowa is a multi-year commitment. We're still stuck in Lubowa. You can imagine all these years later, right? More reason for us to really be very careful about who and when Parliament is involved in binding this. But she talks about it and she says, my understanding of the requirement is that it does not require approval of the terms of the loan to be laid before Parliament, before the instrument under which the loan obtained is executed. She basically said that as long as the promissory, and the court was saying, as long as Parliament approved when the promissory, before the promissory note got out, it is okay. But that undermines everything, because right now, the mess that is Lubowa, and the obligations we have as a country on Lubowa, they're there because of the agreements that were signed. These agreements were signed before this even went to Parliament. Wow. So in other words, everything we are going to be dealing with, like I've had people sometimes shout, oh, you know, there's nothing happening. Can't we just close it up? No. It's a very, very, very strict and a very, very horrible set of agreements. There are 3 agreements. And I want to actually ask where our lawyers were, where are the people who are fighting for the interests of Uganda as a nation when they were setting out those agreements? The cabinet, so, the judge singles out the cabinet. She says the cabinet represents the people. Which is not what the Constitution envisions, and I don't think we can circumvent what the Constitution is quite clear about who has the authority on this. And I think it's also a very troubling precedent, because right now, all these things, the Lubowa scenarios, those are contingent liabilities that begin to increase our debt burden. They don't even get counted officially till later, but they do, right? Indeed. And so it means that people are getting up and signing. The people who signed on that were Lukwago and who was the PS, the Minister of Health then, and the late Muhakanizi, right? People are getting up and signing these things, and then their commitments, and then our children are going to have to pick up the tab. And so for us, we feel that court has really failed Ugandans, especially in light of all we know about Lubowa. In 2019, when we went to court, we were saying this is illegal and contravenes the constitution, but there was no reason. I mean, we as health advocates were pretty sure it was not going to help our health sector. If you remember, in 2019, the Association of Medical Doctors, whatever, had under Okwaro at the time, had said, please don't do this, direct our money to health. The Minority Report of Parliament and some members of Parliament are still alive today had said this is a mistake, right? So we knew it wasn't going to help ordinary Ugandans because they were already telling us it is going to be so much money, people flying for medical tourism. We were trying to figure out how is this helping Ugandans when you said you are getting something for cancer.
Indeed.
But even us in 2019, I don't think we could have envisioned the absolute craziness that has happened at Lubowa. One of the things we said when we were filing our case at that time, they had already come after, right? Like Parliament, when it passed, like I told you, Parliament was put under pressure to pass because there was a promissory note that had to be issued, and government was already in default of its obligations. Around
$379 million.
But the first promissory note was, this is a total amount. The first promissory note was less, and the thing that we were questioning then was saying the promissory note should be issued after a milestone has been accomplished. A certificate. So even at the beginning, 2019 was saying, what is happening at Lubowa? What is this first milestone that we have really accomplished for you to even be passing this? There's likely some fraudulent, something funny happening. But now we're at a point where the government's own Office of the Auditor General report found that over 200 billion was irregularly paid because the milestone completion certificates and everything, the things were not adding up. And you have seen all that happened around the kicking out of MPs. The Minister of Health herself has never gone to this site. And I remember in 2019, shortly after we filed, that's when they kicked out, they first benched the Minister of Health. They benched MPs of the national economy. I remember Honorable Taiwa was on the committee then.
Indeed.
You know? And then it has become a pattern of we block you, we don't. I saw Honorable Mwanga Chivumbi saying, they even asked us for shoes and everything, but no one can go there. And the problem of all of these things is how it starts. The rule of law matters.
But Elena,
and the participation of the people really matters.
Why is this such an important case for Ugandans to think about?
Because of where we are going, because there are all these commitments. Our debt burden, we are so worried about our debt burden as an organization that monitors economic policy and economic social rights. We are seeing right now that we are spending more on debt than we spend on health, education, social protection. So anytime we are getting into any sort of commitments that are going to cost taxpayers, we need to make sure that Parliament at minimum is being able to do this. But also one of the things we asked for in our case was for people's voices to be heard, and of course court shut us down on that.
Indeed. So the Lubowa Hospital project, which has since told was to be financed through promissory notes from the central government. You mentioned that. The viewers would like to know what that means.
It means that you basically commit. So the way it was working was government was going to issue the promissory note to Finasi Rocco. But the Finasi Rocco fell apart. Rocco sued Finasi shortly after we filed our lawsuit in 2019.
Indeed.
I don't know if they've actually eventually, no, but they didn't make up because then they brought in the Chinese company, then that one also left. So we don't know who the other party is, but government had issued to this special purpose vehicle promissory notes, which they would then take to these banks, right? And a promissory note is basically an undertaking, like if they do, I will pay. Right? Like,
continue with the work, I'll pay, I'll commit myself to pay.
And if you think about them, you know, the World Bank has talked a bit about what are called sovereign guarantees. In some of these public-private partnership projects, governments can give sovereign guarantees to incentivize the actor. Maybe the actor, no one is willing to really deal with the actor to give them credit immediately, whatever it is. So you're bringing the reputation of government to this situation and saying, you know what, we will pay. In short, there are financial obligations that we are liable for as a country, right? That's how I'd summarize it, because I know there are different people who are watching and listening, so I don't want to get a bit complicated on it. And one of the things that came out, even in our case, was, okay, was this a loan? And she goes back and forth, she tries to examine, but one of the things we all agree upon, even the AG had considered, was that this was definitely an undertaking to pay, that there was a sense that you're guaranteeing at minimum a loan, and that over time seems to even have become like a loan. So I think that it's very important that, and that's another thing, that's why I also would like a lot of participation, because as a Ugandan you'll hear things, promissory note, floating Lubowa, and you're like, these things are complicated, right?
Elena,
but that is why it should come to Parliament. For example, we do have committees in Parliament that are well tasked to be able to look at these agreements, that are well tasked to be able to say, okay, is this in the interests of our people? What are the terms of this? What is the actual financial risk we are taking on?
And what do you make of those numerous attempts by parliamentarians to visit this site, but all in vain?
I mean, it's not surprising to me because, like I said to you, the process disregarded Parliament from the beginning. And the moment Parliament agreed to go ahead in a rubber stamping, they still passed, right?
Passed it.
And I do, of course, I blame Parliament, but what they did was essentially rubber stamp. And they had a gun there. If you remember, the President wrote to the Speaker, Kadaga, then, because they were there shouting,
they had a gun
like,
to
you
their
have
head.
to pass. Yes, because the promissory note was due. If you don't, whatever, we have to go. Arbitration is in English courts, all of those things. So there was this sense of a very horrible agreement that you're bound to, and someone is saying, we have to pay. But also, technically, you have to pass before we pay.
Indeed.
You understand? Sign. I've already taken the whatever from this person, but now quickly sign.
Elena Kembabazi, why do you think Ugandans should have been consulted before their money is spent on this
because
project?
You're going to pay it. Even when you see government coming after you, and now it's, oh, we're increasing taxes on this. They need money. They need money because we are in so much debt. And when I think about the budget we have just passed, a bit of me is in despair. So someone has to pick the tab for this. So I think as Ugandans, you need to be aware about this, and you task your members of Parliament. And Parliament must stop this nonsense of rubber stamping. I say Lubowa is a classic case where the three arms of government have failed Ugandans. The government that gave up on its initial idea of having this thing at cancer and everything else, because that is when we knew it would not affect daily Ugandans. The Parliament that decided to rubber stamp something which it already pointed out to the first one that sounded the alarm on the on this article of the Constitution being contravened, and then the court which delayed 5 years. We spent 5 years waiting, and then came back and said, sorry, I think it's okay. I think there's a big problem there. Of course, as civil society, we'll continue to fight. We are running a campaign to reclaim public services. As ISER, we are saying health, education, these are rights.
And indeed, time is first spent, but this is a yes or no question. Do you foresee a time when the construction firm will actually confound critics like you and build the 264 specialized hospital?
Even if it does, it has already cost us. This thing has exceeded. Remember, it was supposed to be 2021. And if it does, if they're already telling you that over 200 billion was paid before milestone completion was really set,
Elena,
you have to think about the quality.
I'm sure
and finally,
we shall go on and on.
How many Ugandans will afford Lubowa?
Thank you so much for having made the time to speak to us. That is Elena Kembabazi, Program Manager at the Initiative for Social and Economic Rights. That is ISER. Well, let's take a break. We'll return with sports.